But let's, of course, start with this big story from the United States of America, where the American President Donald Trump's tariff war against the countries across the world is creating ripple effects for weeks now. And the impact is beginning to show. In some instances, Donald Trump seems to be taking his statements back almost as quickly as he makes it. So as of today, the 25% tariff on all steel and aluminium imports across countries have come into effect. The world leaders are responding with retaliatory measures. The European Union Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen has announced countermeasures on textiles, home appliances and agricultural commodities, amongst other things. Now, this is in addition to the steel and aluminium products. Other leaders have also made some pretty strong statements on Donald Trump's trade war.
Our countermeasures will be introduced in 2 steps, starting with April 1st and fully in place as of April 13th. In the meantime, we will always remain open to negotiations. We firmly believe that in a world fraught with geo-economic and political uncertainties, it is not in our common interest to burden our economies with such tariffs.
On the question of tariffs, obviously, like everybody else, I'm disappointed to see global tariffs in relation to steel and aluminium. But we will take a pragmatic approach. We are, as he knows, negotiating an economic deal which covers and will include tariffs if we succeed, but we will keep all options on the table.
Our government will continue to put forward a very strong case for an exemption, noting that the last time this occurred it took months for that exemption to be granted. We will advocate for Australian trade with the United States at every level and through every channel.
So as nations and the United States brace themselves for the impact, a short-lived escalation with Canada has been rolled back. Now, Donald Trump backed down on a pledge to double the tariffs on steel and aluminium from Canada to 50% shortly after announcing the higher rates. And the development took place just hours before the 25% tariff implementation deadline. Now, Donald Trump took back his remarks on the doubled rates after Ontario's Premier suspended a new surcharge to the United States on Canadian electricity. Now, Doug Ford, remember, has threatened not just to place a 25% surcharge on the electricity supplies, but has threatened to cut off the supplies altogether. And it is then that Donald Trump's walked back on his tariffs against Canadian goods. Now, Ontario supplies power to more than 1 million American homes. The trade war has drastically impacted the market sentiment around the world. The thought of higher tariffs has also got citizens of several nations, including the United States, very worried about bearing the brunt of higher tariff rates by higher cost for goods and services. All right, now to give us more perspective on this, we are joined in this broadcast by Ms. Elizabeth Loris, who's a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Indo-Pacific Security Initiative, and she's joining us live in this broadcast. Now, Ms. Loris, this is an interesting dynamic that is playing out. Donald Trump calls himself the deal maker, the peacemaker, but he's setting off a trade war across the world. Now, give us a sense of how this is likely to impact relations of the United States of America with other nations that are some of its closest allies, such as Canada, for instance, nations such as within the European Union and Australia. Is Donald Trump, rubbing his closest allies the wrong way up?
Well, he's certainly causing them to have whiplash. If you look at some of the tariffs that he has imposed, they're not just, imposed, 2 weeks in advance, a month in advance, or whatever. You're looking at intraday tariffs. March 11th, he imposed some tariffs at 9:30. He lifted them at 4:30. So it depends on, the time of day, if the tariffs are a go or not. And so, some people are getting whiplash. I'm actually getting motion sickness. Got my pills here because I don't know which way, things are going. And so I think the operative term, as van der Leyen indicated, is uncertainty. And that's very difficult to have good relations with your allies when you're imposing so much uncertainty, not just day by day, but hour by hour. Trump's strategy, of course, is to level the playing field. Well, initially his strategy, honestly, was to force countries to cut down on the amount of fentanyl that is crossing the borders, and then the illegal immigration. So illegal immigration has that's slowed now, somewhat to a trickle relative to before, but the fentanyl is still a problem. But then also, beyond that, he kind of shifted and in some kind of like mission creep, and now, he's talking much more about a level playing field and, trying to make things better for the American consumer as well as manufacturer. But these tariffs they're going to hurt U.S. manufacturers and the consumers and retirees who are looking at their financial portfolios.
Indeed. You mentioned that he's trying to do this to have a level playing field. In fact, he's gone on a record to state that every nation is trying to rip off the American people and the exchequer there. But the way things have played out for people within America, the markets are in a bit of a meltdown. $4 trillion is what has been lost ever since this trade war has been initiated. A lot of economic experts are saying that these tariffs are going to be counterproductive. They will drive up inflation for the American public, and they'll also kill a lot of productivity, for a lot of industries within the United States of America. How does Donald Trump and the Republicans explain this?
Well, Donald Trump very, very clearly said the other day that, quote unquote, there will be a little disturbances, but we're okay with that. So he and his administration are okay with these so-called disturbances. Right now, the American public, I think, is giving him, well, certainly his supporters, are giving him the benefit of the doubt that there is some strategy here that in the long run is going to help. In the short run, though, however, people are looking at prices that have not come down in the past year or so. When he ran for election, he says, we're going to bring inflation down, we're going to bring prices down. And that is where the American people are going to hold his feet to the fire. They're looking at their pocketbook. They're looking at the price of eggs. And if that doesn't come down, he's going to hurt. He will lose support, and the people who support him will suffer in the 2026 midterm elections.
Will be interesting to see as to how it plays out. Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Loris, for joining us with that perspective there.
You're welcome.
All right, let's now shift our attention to what is happening in Greenland, where the result is out for Greenland's high-stakes elections. The centre-right Democrats have defeated the governing left-wing coalition. The Democrats, led by Jens Frederik, have won 10 seats. And the other big winner is, of course, the centrist Nalerach party with 8 seats. The governing coalition on the left and the centre-left parties has come in the third and the fourth position. So as none of the parties have managed to get a majority in the 31-seat parliament, the leaders across party lines will now have to negotiate to form a coalition government. With the Democrats emerging on top, the party will lead the talks with potential alliance partners. If the Democrats choose to form a government with second-ranking Nalerach, then Greenland's independence will be the biggest flashpoint between the two. Now, Nalerach wants a snap referendum on separating from Denmark and favours closer ties with the United States, including a potential free association agreement. Now, remember, Greenland was a Danish colony until 1953, but it now is a self-governing territory of Denmark, with Copenhagen still controlling the foreign affairs, defence and monetary policy. It has the right to hold a referendum on independence since 2009, and some locals see this election as a chance to potentially secede. Now, the recently ended election was very closely watched, not just by Denmark, but by the American President Donald Trump. For weeks, the Republican leader has highlighted his territorial ambitions about the territory, urging for the Greenlanders to push for independence.
If Trump thought that he would have had any success and impacts on the election, he didn't succeed because the party that won the election says, as I just mentioned, that we have to build the roads to independence, and it might take several years.
Now, the parties that form a coalition in the next few days will determine as to how Greenland's own ambitions overlap with Trump's goal to strategically control the territory. Now, there is no end to the war of words between the centre and the Tamil Nadu government in India on the three-language policy under the national education policy. Now, the Treasury benches clashed again with the opposition on this issue. The Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan slammed the Tamil Nadu government, accusing it of ruining the future of students in the state for political reasons, as it has rejected the three-language model. Now, in response, the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has hit back and called Dharmendra Pradhan to be arrogant and without holding the state's funds. The Pradhan said that the DMK-led Tamil Nadu government had changed its stand on implementing the PM Shri scheme, which envisages strengthening the schools managed by the centre, state or local bodies. Now, the political war over the new education policy is playing out in a very big way in Tamil Nadu. Now, Tamil Nadu's education minister has lashed out at the centre on the national education policy in a post on X. The state education minister has told the centre not to fix what is not broken. He also said that the attack on Tamil Nadu's stand is not only misleading, but it completely ignores the bigger picture. He's also argued that Tamil Nadu's education system has been tried and tested and it has proven successful over decades. It simply does not require the one-size-fits-all approach of the central government. Now, the Tamil Nadu BJP President K. Annamalai has, of course, hit back. He has said that there are some big discrepancies in claims that have been put out on the number of students studying in the state education boards. He's called on the DMK to rise above state politics, terming them to be hypocrites for putting their own children in private schools that follow the three-language model. The MDMK chief termed the issue to be little more than a political war. Now, the centre claims that Tamil Nadu's stand is actually a backtracking of its earlier acceptance of the three-language formula. It has called this move an election gimmick ahead of the assembly polls next year. So, what's been called Hindi imposition has long been a very sensitive issue in southern India, across different states, but especially in Tamil Nadu. The DMK has argued that Tamil Nadu has flourished with a two-language system that includes Tamil, which is the mother tongue for people in Tamil Nadu, and English. It calls the efforts to include Hindi as part of the national education policy an effort to turn India to quote-unquote Hindiya. Now, the BJP claims that its formula will actually benefit for people who want to travel to other states. Now, the Romanian far-right politician Calin Georgescu has lost his appeal against the ruling barring him from participating in May's presidential election. Now, the Constitutional Court has issued the final ruling saying that the decision is pretty much unanimous. The Central Electoral Bureau had earlier rejected Georgescu's candidacy for a rerun of the presidential election. Georgescu had won the first round of last year's presidential vote, but it was annulled after suspicion of Russian meddling in his favour. Intelligence revealed that Russia was involved in the setting up of nearly about 800 TikTok accounts backing him. Russia has reacted to his voting ban, saying that any presidential election in Romania that takes place without Georgescu's participation is simply illegitimate. The Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has said that this is a clear violation of all democratic norms in the centre of Europe. Now, on Sunday, the Election Bureau said that Georgescu's candidacy did not meet the conditions of legality, as he violated the very obligation to defend democracy. Now, Georgescu, in fact, appealed at the verdict the following day, but Romania's top court has upheld the decision, leaving his allies with 4 days to find a replacement. After the Constitutional Court's ruling, Georgescu, in a Facebook video, asked his supporters to choose another candidate to back in the rerun election in the month of May, asserting that they need to show the democratically and peacefully that their choice matters.
After everything that happened today at the Constitutional Court, indeed over the last few months, I tell you that I will remain steadfast in my signal for freedom, democracy, peace, and dignity. If you want to support any person by signing for new candidacies, I ask you to do it as your conscience dictates. It seems that at these moments democracy and freedom are taking their last breath, and therefore they need, more than ever, for us to show democratically and peacefully that our choice matters until the very last moment.
Arătăm democratic și în pace că alegerea noastră contează.
Several hundred protesters gathered outside of the top court to support Georgescu with Romanian flags draped around their shoulders. They chanted, "Calin Georgescu is president and freedom," and condemned the judges as traitors after the ruling. Now, there were some pretty loud boos that were directed at the judges inside. The crowd soon became noisy and angry, saying that they had come to the streets to defend democracy.
Although I expected this decision, I can't believe the government is defying us in this way, because 2 million, even 2.1 million citizens voted for Calin Georgescu, whom they accuse. But they have not produced any evidence, or in this interval of time, if there were evidence, it should have appeared, right? And in this way, the government shows us that we, the 2 million, who, by the way, I think there are more of us now, are incapable. And in this way, our right to vote was stolen, which is a constitutional right.
Și în felul acesta, guvernul ne arată că noi
Now, many Romanians believe that Calin Georgescu is being blocked by a political elite that is corrupt and remote from the people. Now, according to opinion surveys, Georgescu remained the voters' top choice for the May ballot, and his endorsement will carry weight, although it isn't a guarantee. Now, Portugal could be heading to its third general election in as many years after the centre-right government of Prime Minister Luís Montenegro lost a vote of confidence.
The confidence motion was rejected with the votes against from Chega, PS, PAN, PCP and Left Bloc, and for it by the PSD and Liberal Initiative.
Now, the vote was called over the conflict of interest accusations against Montenegro involving a family business. A last-minute attempt to avoid the vote failed when terms could not be agreed for setting up a parliamentary inquiry. Now, Prime Minister Montenegro said that his government had tried everything to avoid the snap elections.
We tried at all cost, right up to the last minute, to avoid creating early elections on the horizon for the Portuguese and for the life of the country.
The Prime Minister said that he had proposed to face a probe committee into his family's company that would last up to 2 months. But the socialists refused to negotiate setting a time limit. And then the government asked for the confidence vote, saying that it was needed to dispel uncertainty about its own future. Now, the Parliament debated the confidence motion for more than 3 hours.
I very much regret what happened in Parliament today, and I regret the words of what happened in Parliament today. It was shameful and unseemly. There were maneuvers, there were games, there were tricks. That is unacceptable. The truth has no time. And it's very important that we don't forget this at any time, that what was being discussed today in the Assembly of the Republic was a motion of confidence, not a parliamentary committee of inquiry.
Now, the government, a two-party alliance led by the Social Democrat Party in power for less than a year, had just 80 seats in the current 230-seat legislature. The main opposition party, the Socialist Party, and the far-right Chega Party had both voted to bring down the government. Now, it is up to Portugal's President, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, to decide whether to dissolve the Assembly and call for new elections. A new election could see the far-right Chega Party make further gains after it became Portugal's third-largest political force in March 2024's legislative elections, when it increased its seats from 12 to 50 and won about 18% of the popular vote. Now, the International Criminal Court has arrested the former president of the Philippines after filing charges against him on grounds of extrajudicial killings. Now, the ex-Philippine leader, Rodrigo Duterte, was arrested on Tuesday. Now, the plane that was carrying Duterte is expected to land in the Netherlands shortly after taking off on Tuesday and halting in Dubai for a few hours. Now, earlier in the day, the lawyers representing the former president had filed a petition to the country's Supreme Court. Duterte's family has accused the current government of quote-unquote kidnapping the former leader. The petition that was filed in the court now demands for his return.
There are already arrangements made because I need to speak to our lawyers for him. Wherever he's being taken, we will head there with our lawyers and discuss our next steps there.
The prosecutors of the World Court have filed murder charges amounting to crimes against humanity against Rodrigo Duterte. The 79-year-old former president has been accused of funding and arming quote-unquote death squads in his crackdown on drugs during his presidential term from 2016 till 2022. The details further allege that the so-called war on drugs had resulted in over 6,200 suspects getting killed. These included purported drug users, drug dealers, amongst others. Now, this, remember, is the official number that's been released by the police. The activists allege that the toll of those who were killed as part of this war on drugs is much higher. The development has created a massive uproar and celebrations in equal measure. Families of the victims and activists have welcomed the arrests and have urged for a transparent investigation. However, the supporters of Duterte are crying foul over the ex-president's arrest.
We are calling for justice, not only for the victims, the 300,000 victims of extrajudicial killing.
Well, this is great news for Filipino people. As a Filipino, we've been waiting for this one. We've been fighting for the victims of extrajudicial killings, that they get the justice that they deserve. And now we are very close to this one. This is very, very close, and we are so happy. And I'm here to show my appreciation to ICC by doing its job to end impunity.
We are here actually because we want to show our love and support to our beloved former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte po. That's basically the gist bakit nandito kami ngayon, because of our love and support to tinuturing naming tatay.
They handed our president to foreigners. It's a shame. What they did was shameful. They brought shame to our country.
Interestingly, the Philippines withdrew from the ICC back in 2019. However, the judges ruled that since the alleged crimes took place during the period when Manila was still an ICC member, the case falls under its jurisdiction. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching.
General Bryce Oligui Nguema, the strongman of Gabon since the 2023 coup that overthrew